Hey, everybody, it's Mike Gomoll. Welcome to another episode of the Joey Song Podcast. Not that everyone isn't interesting, but I think you'll find this one really interesting. It's our pal David Michaels, Hollywood filmmaker. He's got a movie coming out beginning of next year, starring Rob Lowe, Crispin Glover, and some other folks. It's a thriller based upon the Tommy Taffy spooky internet thing I know nothing about, but he does, and he's made what many are considering already a classic. It's going to be released. So David joins us today. He's a big part of Joey Song. He's on our board and does tons of stuff for Joey Song. But today we talk about filmmaking. If you've ever wondered what goes into, hey, we've got a potential story to let's get this thing released, David will fill you in on the difference between a producer and a director and a writer and all the trials and tribulations. So I think you'll find it pretty interesting and fascinating. He is our pal, David Michaels, and he is next on the Joey Song Podcast. Welcome to the official podcast of Joey Song. You know, at Joey Song, we have one mission: raise as much money as we can so that research into finding treatments and cures for epilepsy can get the funding it needs. We would love your support. If you can subscribe and leave a review of this podcast, it will help more than you could ever know. If you have a couple extra mouse clicks left in you, go to YouTube and our YouTube channel, Joey Song, and subscribe. There, in less than 2 minutes with a couple of mouse clicks, you will have made it easier for others to find us and help spread the word. Now, if you want to do a bit more, head over to joeysong.org, consider buying a show ticket or some merch, or even making a donation. Thanks. You know, we'll beat this disease, and together we'll have some fun doing it as well. Join us. All right, let's do this. Hey, everybody, we are back. As you heard in my intro, it is my good pal, David Michaels. I could spend 2 hours talking about all the journey that David and I have been on, from Butch Vig saying, this is my friend David, he's moving to Milwaukee, take him out for beers, to where we are today. And maybe we will. Maybe that'll be a mini-series. But David, welcome to the Joey Song Podcast.
A privilege to be here, really. And great to see you, as usual. And Butch was so spot on with all of it, and we've become such great friends. And you know, what an incredible cause, Joey Song.
Well,
it's changed my life too.
I believe Butch's phrase was, Dave needs a drinking buddy here in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin. Somehow he picked me out for that. I don't know. That's a weird.
We should pin him down on that. What
was his thought process on that? What were you thinking, BV? So We're going to have a conversation. As I said in the intro, David is, and whenever I put his name on any Joey Song stuff, he just wants the phrase filmmaker. That's what David does. He makes films and has made films. And we're really talking today. We can go in much deeper on further stuff, but David's got a film coming out really soon that you're all going to be really interested in, seeing, but what I really want to talk about is the process. So David's got a film coming out called The Third Parent. So before we get into how it starts from germination to where you are today, talk a little bit about this movie. What is The Third Parent? What's kind of the backstory?
Well, the Third Parent is based on an IP, intellectual property, that had been written for and on a subreddit called NoSleep, which is a horror forum that consists of about 18 million subscribers. So this particular story had been voted the #1 most scariest story on that forum 6 or 7 times over 6 or 7 years. Almost every year it bubbled to the top. I had no idea about this, and I really had no interest in making horror films other than maybe seeing one that happened to catch some wind. It was interesting, and not even in the theater. I'd wait till it hit streaming. But of course, it's a genre that is consistently positive, meaning there's a great upside too financially. So,
Absolutely.
so a good friend of mine in Chicago had chased down this IP and became friends with the author, who was in the process of turning these four short stories into a novel. He sent all this information to me and said, look, I know this may not be your thing. I don't want to bother you. I know you're producing movies. And I just think you should look at this. I see the light of day for this. It's got some millions and millions of fans that can't stop speaking about it. There's 400,000 comments under it. It's been adapted into 60 languages. You really got to take a look at this. I said, fantastic. Thank you for sending it to me, but I'm in production. I don't know when I'm going to be able to look at this. And to be honest with you, my plate is full.
Yeah.
So I'm on a plane about 1 year later and just fiddling around on my laptop, and I'm like, okay, what is this file? And there it is. All the things that he had sent me, I put into a file. So I had some time. I said, I really feel terrible about not responding to my friend Spencer. Let me take a look at it. By the time the plane landed some 3 hours later, I was so convinced of what he said, that this being possibly something magnificent to turn into a horror film, that I called him as I was on the jet ramp, exiting the plane. It was that incredible. I was trying to get him in the cabin, but there were too many
Yeah.
people. I really didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I said, look, I'm so sorry. I apologize for this, but you were right. Is it still available? Are the rights still available? The rights are still available. I said, look, I really want to do this, but I want to write it. I want to do the screen adaptation, and I have some parameters involved there. But I really want to direct it. I'm really tired of producing. To be honest with you, it's too much. I'm moving into a different phase of my life. I want to be home for my kids and be able to choose what I want to do and be able to space things out and not be beholden to anyone else but myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So first things first, we needed to option the film rights, the film and television rights to this property. So we got in contact with the author. Turns out, Spence became really good friends with him, so it was an easy process. It cost a considerable amount of money to move forward at this point, but Spence was sort of successful in the commodities market. He had sort of retired from it at 45, had some loose change, so he decided to put the money up to do that. Then next was developing the screenplay from these four short stories and this impending novel. And I said, Spence, I don't do things for free anymore. Look, we can either find someone. I can go for another investor. I have a handful of these guys who put up some development money, but I got to get paid to do it. I can't just compartmentalize myself on something and push everything else aside without getting paid for it. So he said, no. I'm going to pay for that too. We arrived at a number. So I started in on it. I think I pounded out the first draft in less than 3 months. Then from there, I subsequently went back and forth, and the number that we landed on was the 52nd draft of the script. And this took about a year's time. And that script then became the one that we wanted to deploy. So the next step was finding a producer who could make things happen. I didn't want to be the producer. I just wanted to be the writer and the director. I'm not producing at Spence. I know a lot of big producers, but I have to think about who to go to. So I was in the process of running motion pictures, as you recall, for 828 out of New Mexico. Yep. I was choosing films and bringing them to New Mexico because of the film tax credit there. We were building a studio, and we were also a co-financier. We made Ari Aster's Eddington there that starred Pedro Pascal and Joaquin Phoenix and Emma Stone. We co-produced that and a couple other movies. So I had places to go with this. And during that process, a good friend...
You know what, David, explain the difference between a producer and a director, because a lot of people may not understand the subtleties between that.
All right. The producer is the person who puts together everything. They assemble, they find the property, the screenplay, what have you. They find the writer that may adapt something if it's a book. They find the proper director. They actually work to find financing and distribution. They work with the agents to cast the movie. They might have to hire a casting director. They do budgets. They get budgets prepared. They decide where the best place to make this is, whether it's in the United States in a film tax incentive friendly state, or it's in a film tax friendly country outside of the United States. They put all the money together. They deal with all the business, all the contracts. They bring in the law firms on every level. It's both creative and business, right?
So that had been mostly what you had been doing up until now, and now you got the itch. It's like, okay, I want to be mostly on the creative side, at least for this piece. With the third parent,
Yes.
I want to be on the creative side. Got it.
I want to be on the creative side. I just am in a different part of my life. I don't want to be making other people. I don't want to be doing that for other people anymore. You know, it takes everything you've got, and it's very expensive. It's very expensive. I wanted to be the recipient, meaning the screenwriter gets paid first, right? Producers get paid last, essentially. Now, they don't get paid until the movie goes to production, so they're last in the really. And but they put the most time in from beginning to end. But once I'm engaged, especially when we go to production, then I'm the I put in the most time. But it's all creative, and it's a producer's job.
I didn't mean to interrupt. So you found the producer.
Okay. It's a producer's job to make me comfortable. So that producer I'm speaking of is an old friend of mine, Gary Walters, who came to me when I was running the Situation in New Mexico. He wanted to bring a movie there. And we tried to work it out with him, but it didn't work out for a couple of reasons. Not creative, but financially, it wasn't an expensive movie enough for us to get involved. It was too low budget, to be honest with you. We were looking for more mid-range stuff between 15 million and 100 million. So he says, "Well, what are you doing? What do you got cooking?" I said, "Well, this is what I'm doing," but because he knew me as much more of a creative person too. So I said, "Look, I've got this script that I've just adapted. I want to direct it." He goes, "Wow, well, let me take a look at it." He says, I said, "It's a horror. It's a psychological thriller thing." He says, "Well, I haven't made one of those movies yet, but I'd like to. I mean, if they're good, we all see what happens with them. A lot of these movies go on to make hundreds of millions of dollars
and
for
franchise out.
Budgets. Franchise." He says, "Well, could this be a franchise?" I said, "Yeah, it already has 18 million captive fans on its platform." So his eyes opened immediately. I sent it to Gary Walters. He had made Neon Demon, Drive, Nightcrawler, Whiplash was one of the movies he made, right? And he had been Oscar nominated before, twice. He's also won some Emmys for his TV series. But anyway, Gary's an old friend of mine. I've known him for 25 years. And so about a week later, he gives me a call and he says, I have to do this. I just can't put this script down. I can't get it out of my head. I had 5 other people in my wheelhouse read it who I trust. Everyone was saying this was an extraordinary project. I needed to do it, so let's do it. So, of course, I'm very excited about this because this is a producer who can move things. So from that point forward, we made a short list of who we would cast in this, and I was very keen to cast someone against typecast. I said, "Look, Gary, let's not go for all these obvious people. Everybody wants the Alexander Skarsgårds, and the Pedro Pascals these days, right? Let's go for someone unexpected." And he goes, well, what do you mean? Tell me. I said, John Krasinski, a comedian. He makes horror movies now,
He does.
right? The Quiet Thing, whatever that.
I remember.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. Who would ever expect him to do that? Secondly, he's Jack Ryan.
Right.
He's Jack Ryan on a series where he's an action star. Who would ever think that would happen again? And I said, furthermore, Bateman, right?
Yep.
Jason Bateman.
Yep.
Justin's his sister. And look at him on Ozark. Who would ever see him in that role? It's a dramatic thriller, right? And he goes, well, who's left? I said, well, Rob Lowe is left. I've not seen Rob do anything like this, and I'm willing to bet that we could get his interest. So he said, okay, let me look into Rob. And at the same time, I'm going to have to get some financing in order, and give me some time. Okay, hang up. I'm really excited about it. He sends me paperwork. We make our deal. He's going to fund a certain amount of these things. He's going to pay me if I need to do more rewrites based on anything that happens, et cetera, et cetera. He's engaged now. Normally, this stuff takes 6 months to a year to put together. He calls me back 2 weeks later, and he says, "Okay, I've got the money. I've got 5 million and change. I think it's enough. I think I can get you 20 to 25 shoot days. We're going to have to do this, though, out of the country in order to make it work at that budget. You okay with that?" I'm okay with it. He goes, "But here's the crazy thing. We don't even have cast yet, and I have domestic distribution willing to give us a 1,500 theater guarantee. And they'll give us a $2 million advance on that. Because the property's so well put together, you've got this team of creatives that you've put together, back your ambition. The cinematographer, Guy Ritchie cinematographer, he did Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He did Snatch. He did Revolver. He did the Sherlock Holmes movies, et cetera, et cetera. Was my cinematographer. I brought the production, Guillermo del Toro's production designer in, who did Pan's Labyrinth, and he even did Handmaid's Tale, the series. I brought in the editor who did The Substance, which was one of Demi Moore's hottest movie 2 years ago. It won the Cannes Film Festival. She won Best Actress. I brought that editor in. And then, of course, I brought Butch Vig in, our mutual friend, to be the composer. So the package looked, I guess, quite fantastic to these people. And miraculously, they committed within this 2-week period. So all of a sudden, flash forward 2 months ahead, we are now in the casting process. Now Gary's in a position, because it took this long to get the paperwork done, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now he can make offers to actors. So the first thing we do is we go to Rob Lowe. We send the script. Apparently, Rob Lowe is very interested in it, but they want $1 million. So Gary says, "We've only budgeted $500,000 for us, man. We just can't do that. I mean, we cannot do it. I mean, we're already on the edge. It's already going to be incredibly tight." They say, "All right, well, we're sorry about that. I guess it's not going to work out." I'm bummed, because we got Rob Lowe's interest. It actually worked. My intuition spoke. So a couple days go by, we make an offer to someone else. I can't recall who it was. Another notable actor. And then all of a sudden I get a call from Gary, and he's like, "You want the good news or the bad news first?" I go, "Just give me the bad news first." He says, "Okay, the ex-actor that we made the offer to is passing." He goes, "Okay, for the good news." He goes, "Rob Lowe wants to meet you." What? He goes, "Well, I guess something happened in there. They told him what we could do, and he seems keen, but he wants to meet you first. So I'm going to fly you to Santa Barbara. I'm going to pick you up. We're going to drive over to his house in Montecito. We're going to spend the afternoon with him, I guess." I'm like all excited about this. This is incredible. So I fly there. Gary picks me up and says, "Change of plans. Rob wants to meet us at the Montecito Club," which is at that big $1 billion now hotel there. It's bungalows and things. It's right on the beach. So we go there, and it's a massive compound. It's gates and everything. And we drive to a separate building. It's like a house, 2 or 3 level house. Go into the house. There's all these people waiting for us. Rob took over the whole thing. He paid to have the whole house for our afternoon there. They set us up upstairs on the 3rd floor, outside over the ocean in Santa Barbara. It was a beautiful day. And it was just Rob and I and Gary. And I thought maybe an hour we're going to be here, because, a lot of these guys have short attention span. They want to get it over with. But it turned out to be 3 or 4 hours. So over this lunch, Rob drilled me on everything, how I wanted to approach things, how this maybe aligned or did not align with his thinking, what could happen in a further rewrite. He wanted to be a producer on the project, a creative producer. He had great things to say. We agreed pretty much on all of it. I mean, maybe I pushed back on one thing, but he came around to my point. We shook hands and he said, look, I got to tell you something. I read the script. This is in parting. I read the script. It was so brilliant. And I thought, this is crazy. I never say this about anything. So my son, who's a very accomplished screenwriter, by the way, his son, John, has a TV series coming on Amazon that he created and has written. He's successful. He said, John, am I seeing things here? I'm hallucinating? John read it. He said, no, Dad. And you know what? You have to do this. You really have to do this. So here we are today. I'm gonna take the hit on my feet. I don't even actually care about it right now. Let's just make this movie. Let's get going. How fast can we make this? Because I have this short window. So that really put a lot of pressure on us to make it happen sooner than later. But they got his agents involved at the William Morris Endeavor Agency, and it got his agents involved at Brillstein Gray, and they're all heavyweights. So now, the foot on the accelerator.
Yeah.
It started going so fast that each week, bigger pieces were coming into play, meaning the team was crystallized. We got all my key creatives in place. We identified the country and the co-production company that we wanted to make this with. We were pushed to go to Budapest in Hungary because a lot of Gary's other friends had made movies there. Matter of fact, they have huge motion picture studios there, and Dune is shot there. The majority of Dune is actually shot there, for example. So Gary said, look, you have 2 weeks to button it up because you're going to get on an airplane and then we're out of here for 4 months. We'll cast the rest of it in these last 2 weeks while you're getting ready. Take care of things at home. I know you have your kids. Let's talk about that separately. What needs to happen there? I want to make that easy for you. Nevertheless, look, I've never seen anything go this fast, but this is what happens in the business. Once someone of Gary's caliber sees it and they, when they make a phone call, everyone listens, the agents, right? Actors, it takes on a different level. The trick is even getting someone like Gary to want to do it. They have their own projects that come first or hold precedent. And this was all timing. He had been kind of looking to do a horror film. He was tired of seeing all these horror films make so much money, but he hadn't been doing it.
Yep.
And it just made sense. So who knows? If I gave him that script a month later, he might have found something else.
He had something on it.
So
amazing.
From there, there were a lot more rewrites. We get to Budapest. I only had 7 weeks of prep. We cast in that interim Crispin Glover to star as the villain. I met with Crispin initially by FaceTime or Zoom. We had a 3-hour meeting. He's a really fascinating guy. He was so perfect for this. He understood everything that I needed from him. He was really willing to dig in. Subsequent to that, we spoke every day in pre-production until he got to Budapest. And even then, I was speaking to him every morning at 4 a.m. to get him ready for the day because his role was pretty intense. And to be honest with you, he was very insecure he wanted to deliver. He really wanted to deliver. And I don't want to say he was insecure in a negative way. It's just that, it's good to feel that way because he had the butterflies,
Yeah,
he
absolutely,
he really wanted to do something grand, and he did. He really pulled it off. But who really blew me away in the end was Rob Lowe. Rob really brought it. He came, and I've never seen him like this. We rehearsed for the week going into it, and he was doing things I never saw him do before. I said, look, I don't want you to be recognizable. I want people to forget it's you. Like within minutes, they forget it's Rob Lowe. You're not going to look the way you do now. You're going to be scruffy. You're going to have longer hair. You're going to be tired. You're going to be beat up. Let's go there. He says, I'm all about it, man. So he didn't even sleep for the first 3 or 4 days going into it because he wanted to get that look naturally. Because quite right. I mean, he's committed. These guys are method guys. Same thing with Crispin. Everyone was so concerned also about visually how they appeared so that it matched my vision for the movie. And it also gave them something to work from themselves, right? They look at themselves in the mirror and they become this person.
Yeah.
So then I was throwing a monkey wrench 4 days before we rolled camera. I'm not sure I told you this. So I originally had 27 or 28 days to make this movie, and it was super tight. They come back to us, the producers, Gary and the Hungarian producers come back to me 4 days before to roll camera on that following Monday and say, we're $300,000 over budget. So Gary says, I know what you're going to say. I already spoke to Bleecker Street. They're not going to put more money in. We made a deal with this budget. That's what it is. They're not going to do it. So there's two roads to go here. Well, really one, he says. You and I are going to have to defer our fees, which covered the $300,000 until we deliver the movie. Or you're going to have to take days off of this. I don't know how you're going to do it. You got to get this down to 20 days, this shoot. Okay, so in the end, we had to defer our fees, and I had to get it down to a 20-day shoot. I don't want to tell you how angry I was for a lot of reasons. I have children. So I'm like, okay, so there goes that money. I'm not going to make any money for a year and a half. Yet I'm going to work every day for 18 hours for a year and a half. I'm still working 18 hours a day. I'm going to finish the movie, though, the end of June. Right, that's my last trip on this. I'll be in California for the entire month of June. So please come by, by the post-production house. Butch is swinging over because he has to work with the sound designer and stuff and integrate that. We'll all be there. It would be great to see you. But nevertheless, okay. So I had to lose 30 pages of the script by Monday.
How do you do that?
That's what I said. How am I even going to do that? I sat there by myself in my hotel room going, this is effing impossible.
Yeah.
But I'm here. Everybody's here. Yeah. Everyone's relying on me. It's crewed up, 300 people. All the actors are here. A lot of the actors came in from London. And I don't know. I spent 48 hours rewriting the script. I don't even remember it because I didn't go to sleep. And I came out 48 hours later with the script, 30 pages out of the script. I sent it to the first AD, who's part of scheduling the movie and part of creating the new budget with the line producer. Lo and behold, somehow I made the mark by like $30,000.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
But they did say you can't go a day over, an hour over on your shoot. An hour over, because we go into overtime, it's going to go right across the red line. So my challenges were far and wide. So what am I supposed to do? Okay, we're going to make the movie. Somehow in that process, I got it done. I made all my days. I got out of the actors everything I needed. They understood what I was against. So I also believe that sort of pressure and responsibility caused them to get deeper into their characters much sooner, possibly, right? Than they would have otherwise.
And that's because and part of that is because they believed in the project too, right? It wasn't just a gig, right?
No, it wasn't just a gig. No one's making their quote.
Right. So they wanted to make it work.
They wholly believed in the end results, my vision for it, and that if we did this well and right, it would clearly go out to the theaters, which, by the way, is almost impossible these days.
Yeah.
It is almost impossible to get a movie into a theater. It automatically now, 90% of the movies that are made go to streaming.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing in the theaters are only 10% of what gets made.
Yeah.
It's just not a plan for most of these companies anymore. They don't want to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars marketing things. In this case, they are spending considerable millions of dollars, but they believe in the project, and it's going out theatrically. So the numbers are going to hopefully supersede the expenditure. Okay, so I did go over one day an hour, and I really needed it. And I called the line producer up, and I said, I've been on it this whole time. I've done everything you guys are asking me for. You're going to give me this hour. And he said, and he actually said, you have been incredibly shrewd about all this. I'm really impressed. I'll give you the hour. I'll figure out the money. Okay. I said, yeah,
You know
just
what,
don't take
David?
it out of my deferment.
That's right. Let's take a break right now. And then when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the movie itself. I know everybody wants to hear about the process building up to it, and we could keep going on that. But I also want to hear about the film because unlike me, who's lived it with you for the last few years, a lot of people are going to go, okay, tell me more about Rob Lowe being out of character. Tell me a little bit more about Crispin Glover getting deep into his. So let's take a break. We'll be back in a minute,
Okay.
and David's going to talk a little bit more about the content of The Third Parent. So stick around to the Joey Song Podcast. We'll be right back. Okay, folks, we are back. I will admit during the break, I took a few minutes to figure out what a scruffy Rob Lowe would actually look like. I don't think that's possible to picture that, so that will be good. But I absolutely could figure out what a scruffy Crispin Glover would look like. So those were not easy or hard for my brain to get around on that. But we are back with David Michaels. We're talking about The Third Parent. We could have gone on for another 5 hours about the process because I don't know what it takes to put on a movie. I know what it takes to put on a concert. No idea what it takes to put on a movie. So that was really fascinating. But I really wanted David to talk a little bit about the content, what this story is. You guys all heard there's 18 million with an M people that have engaged on this story over the years in the subreddit. That's an incredible number to be involved in anything. So that means there's some heft to this. That means there's some interest to this. But honestly, I don't know, other than what David's told me over the years about the Tommy Taffy franchise and what's behind it. So I want David to spend a little time talking about the story, the intellectual property, what is behind this. So David, take it away.
Tommy Taffy is the name of the villain that Crispin Glover plays, and he's contained within the overall umbrella story, which is called The Third Parent. Tommy Taffy looks for vulnerable families, dysfunctional families, families in crisis, whether it's the parents, the kids, there's nothing happening there. And what he likes to do is insert himself. He shows up at their homes, convinces them he's there to help. Matter of fact, what he's talking about is sensible. It's logical. It's almost like, wow, he really sees that we're having these sorts of issues. I don't know, maybe he's got something good to say. But they quickly learn that Tommy's there to take over the family. And the way in which he does it is through hyperviolence. So he immediately compartmentalizes the family and uses psychological terror to contain and manipulate them. And initially, no one knows why he does this. He likes to come in, take over, and use authoritarian rule, employ authoritarian rule over a family in order to get them to comply. In his words, to become better citizens. And
wow. So we can talk about this as it goes on, but that sounds a little relevant these days.
Yeah, better citizens, more compliant and obedient people. Even the children fall into that. So this was something that really spoke to me when I read about this, and I actually spoke to the author, and then I said to the author, I said, "Look, this is what resonates for me in the story, and I believe it'll resonate for people like Rob Lowe," which it did. I said, I need to have some subtext in here that I'm going to write into this about what's happening on the planet, not just in the United States, but in Europe and a few other countries out there. And I don't want to be so upfront and obvious about it, but it's just important. I feel like I could sort of get out some of my, I don't know, really messaging, but it's just interesting to me. Yeah. And if you allow me to lay that in there, then we're on. So ultimately, I did do that. And I sort of took the story, the basic story, up a few notches in say quality and depth, and it had more meaning, especially subtextually. Rob Lowe gravitated to that immediately. Even Crispin Glover saw that. one thing we are concerned about is that Tommy Taffy, the character himself, has blonde, orangish hair, and he has blue eyes, and he has sort of really tacky skin that almost looks plastic.
Oh my
So,
God.
so look, the fact of the matter is, like, I talk about this movie's distributor is Bleecker Street, by the way. There it goes, in the independent world, it's A24, Neon, and then Bleecker Street. Bleecker Street just doesn't do movies as high a budget as those companies, but they're a player in that scenario, an important player. They're the ones behind this movie, and everyone as actually now the marketing department, they're seeing it all as positive, because if in fact, and most likely, El Presidente will become aware of this movie, and they will have commentary, negative, about all of it and come gunning for me.
Yep.
However, they see that as all fantastic. So, I mean, we're prepared. Maybe he doesn't see it, but it's almost impossible to see how he won't, because it is going out. It is being released nationally in movie theaters on January 22nd, and the marketing campaign starts in October. However, we are withholding what Tommy Taffy will look like until the movie. Sort of like how they marketed Nick Cage in Longlegs, which was an enormous hit. It did $100 million domestically on a $10 million budget. They didn't show Nick until the movie. Right? You only heard his voice and whatnot. Bleecker's gonna market this movie similarly, but we do expect some of that back. So creatively, Rob Lowe had to come into this and sort of be a forceful father, but also be that father who's disenfranchised from his family. He's got the pressure of work. He's got a wife who's sort of monitoring him all the time, doesn't ever believe he's doing anything to his full potential. She doesn't believe he's always in his head. He's not paying enough attention to his own children. He's missing science fairs. He's missing his daughter's equestrian events. He really doesn't do much with his wife anymore. He's got excuse after excuse. If anything, he just plops down in his lazy boy, and he loves to watch the Los Angeles Dodgers, which Rob Lowe loves, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I'm very familiar with that, yes.
You'll see him often. He was at every World Series game right there. You'll see him often behind home plate and whatnot. Yeah. He travels with the team. Big fan. So all of these things, right, came into play. And again, this is a moment in which Tommy recognizes, because he had observed the family a bit beforehand, right? He knew what he was getting into, and he wanted to check, and then he had his moment after a big fight to introduce himself, right? And then sort of force himself through the front door. And from that point on, violence is exact. He's quick and he's decisive. During the process, though, he works on dismantling all of them. The father, the mother, the children. He creates, instead of creating reconnection, he works even harder at dismantling, not physically, but what breaks them down even further to where he can absolutely control them. Now, the problem with Tommy is that he doesn't understand good from bad. And I don't necessarily want to give away why, because that's something that comes out. Most likely, there are hints and Easter eggs in this movie about this, but it's going to be more explained in the sequel, because we're already starting to work on the sequel, and that's how much Bleecker Street believes in it. But what Tommy likes to do is control each one collectively and then separately. And he likes to pit them against one another. And he believes that even if it takes violence or absolute betrayal in order to get one or more of them to behave properly, that it's fine. So he does some
justify the means kind of thing,
Justify the means. He does some pretty dastardly things to all of them. It's horrific. It's unconscionable. There's some shocking things that happen in this movie. I even went further than a lot that was written in the original stories. And then there were some things in the original stories I couldn't do because they were just
Yeah.
too much,
Yeah.
very unpalatable. But ultimately, what this is about is a dysfunctional family now being served something that they never expected and putting them in the most horrific position, life or death. And what is this family going to do now in order to rid themselves of this potential threat? So, over the course of the movie, they all have to come back together and mastermind his expulsion.
So,
I'm
so
not
in the
going to
end, he
say
does bring. So in the end, he does bring the family together.
he does bring the family together, but man, does he do it in the harshest of ways. And I'm not going to say that it's an entire success.
Yeah, yeah.
So you kind of have to see how it plays out. But there are some pretty horrific things that happen in this movie. As a matter of fact, there is a scene that no one's ever shot before in a movie. I guess never had the courage to, or distributors or production companies or studios said, there's no way you're doing that. But this is one particular scene that I insisted we have. And I did have to convince Bleecker Street to let me keep it. And so far, it's one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie that everyone who's involved in the making of the movie really feels like, we successfully pulled it off. Even the actors had issues with it. And I will tell you this, when we shot, I decided to shoot this scene first. All right. This really threw the actors off their fulcrums. They're like, what? This is the most insane scene in the movie. It's one of the longest scenes, and you're going to make us do this first. I said, well, yeah. You're telling me that you're having issues and it's catching you off guard. That's exactly what I want, because Tommy catches you off guard in the scenario, and I just want you to get in there, and we're going to go for it. They subscribed to that, but they were still like, not convinced. But once we got going, I had an entire day to do one scene. I think we shot for 12 hours. And I had 3 cameras going simultaneously, overheads and roving, and some on track, dollies, etc. But we pulled it off. And what I will tell you was that all of us, and most of us that day on the crew, and our actors and myself all have children, and all the crying that happens and all the panic and the high anxiety that occurs in this scene was 100% real. Yeah. Every actor put themselves in the scene as if the 2 kids that were sitting there were their own. And they were crying emphatically. They couldn't stop crying even when I said, cut, take a minute, and we'll do another take. They continued to cry. And I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out myself, watching they're right here, right? But I'm watching the monitor because I'm getting all the different shots, right? I couldn't help to tear up either. Jeez. And I look over, and all the crew that was hidden in the other rooms that were watching were caught crying. It was that intense. So I really hope that this particular scene does play the same way with audiences worldwide when it happens. But the whole movie is very, very emotional and very intense. And Rob Lowe went to a place I've never seen him go to. He delivered on such a level that I really hope that he gets nominated for at least an Independent Spirit Award or something, because this is work that he committed to, and I sort of knew he had it in him. I could see it develop in the rehearsals and all our discussions, but he came ready to play. Yeah. And as did the other actors. Rosalyn Sanchez, who plays his wife, was fantastic. The children were utterly incredible. The boy who plays Rob's son is actually a star in the new Lords of the Flies miniseries. But he's British. The girl who plays his sister is British. They came from London. But everyone, man, it was pretty fantastic to see my words, my vision, how I've always seen it happen. There's nothing more for me anyway, more fulfilling, except anything my children would do. Right. That's right. But other than that, this was, it's hard to explain.
No,
Start
yeah.
explaining the fulfillment you get out of such a thing. When you have
But
hundreds of people working for
yeah.
you to realize your vision in that moment.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, wherever it was when you started doing this, that's why you made the decision to go from producer to director. I mean, that's the roll of the dice you take on that, right? Because
Yeah,
it's, I don't know any other way to say it. And that's what you were hoping for. And it came through, and
I just
now,
I needed more. Yeah, I needed more out of my
yeah,
work, my life, and then how do I put
yeah,
myself into these things, right?
right.
Get something back out of it, or have a catharsis or revelation, or it
Yeah,
changed me. I grew as a human being through the
right,
process. Who wouldn't?
right.
And that's what I needed out of these things, other than making other people rich.
Indeed, indeed. All right, I got one last question for you on the movie. Give me a comp, because you keep using the word psychological thriller, yet also awful things. So I mean, if it's a slasher movie, I want people to know that, or if it's not, is there a comp in your mind that people would go, oh, it's like that? And maybe the answer is
It's
no.
no, there is. We often refer to it as American Psycho,
Yeah.
but with a science fiction element.
Okay. All
If
right.
you're familiar with that book and that
Yep.
movie, Christian Bale crushed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's intense. It's unexpected. We push the envelope. Um, it's visceral, but it's very emotional.
Excellent.
And
All right. So
I wanted and needed that.
Yeah. As we're closing, name of the movie is The Third Parent, coming out on Bleecker Street. And when is it? I know these things shift, so we're not going to put this in stone. When is it scheduled to hit theaters?
Well, now it's scheduled. I don't think it's going to move because they're plotting now the marketing campaign. So it's got to,
Yeah.
January 22nd in theaters only nationwide. So it'll be in a
Rob
few
Lowe.
thousand theaters.
Yeah. Rob Lowe, Crispin
Rob Lowe,
Glover, Rosalyn
Rosalyn
Sanchez.
Sanchez. Yes, yes.
Well, and now, of course, you've already put the teaser in. You're working on the sequel. Unbelievable. For those of you that don't know, and we said it at the beginning, David and I have been friends for a while. And I remember when this first came up, because he said the words Tommy Taffy to me. And I said, is that like a now and later that I ate as a kid? And he told me, no, it wasn't. So I have lived this journey with him, and to see it fruition and to see the point literally where people other than him are talking about sequels is beyond stellar. I have no other way to say it. So
thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
You betcha.
And yes,
So,
you have been riding shotgun with me on this for a long time.
It's pretty dang cool. All right. Well, we had intended to talk about Joey's song on this, but I wasn't going to stop David when he was telling me all these cool inside stories. So I'm going to corral him in a couple more weeks before he heads out to go to LA the end of May and do all I'm going to use the wrong terms, the voiceovers. I know it's not voiceovers. What's it called? What's it called that you're going out there to do? Some voice thing, right? Where the actors.
Well, one of the things is it's called ADR. That's automatic dialogue replacement. I have to have the actors come in, including Rob, which we did last week at his house.
Yeah. Got it.
Some of the lines aren't recorded properly, or I needed new lines because I shot new scenes. I needed some things to occur and happen there to better tell the story. And many times, the actor can improve their performance.
Sure.
Right.
Is it possible to get Rob to switch to being a Cubs fan instead of a Dodgers fan? Can we do that in ADR?
You can.
Because I'm wearing my Cubs Wrigley clock.
I'd have to have you record the word Cubs though, because it will never roll off his lips.
Yeah, Rob and I'll work on that. I think that would improve the movie immensely. So anyway, David Michaels, I could not be more excited about the topic we talked about today, and that it's all coming true. There's nothing better than watching somebody's dream come true. And speaking thereof, I'm my own perfect straight man. In a couple of weeks, we'll talk about Joey's song, talking about dreams coming true. So, David Michaels, thank you, amigo. Please. Grateful.
And thank you too.
Yep.
And we'll get to Joey's song because that has become such an important part of my life. We talk about it almost every day.
Yeah, so, pretty darn close.
I cannot wait to speak about it. It really holds precedent over all else, and not my children, but they're part of Joey's song. So
They are now. They're performers.
thanks.
They're not just part of it. They're
Yeah.
on stage, man.
Yeah.
All right, David
Well,
Michaels, thank you. Go ahead. Finish.
That's it. All right. That's
Okay.
it. I just want to say, you have my gratitude. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to see you next. We have a lot of work to do for Joey's song. I can't wait to get to it.
Sounds good.
Thanks
David
again.
Michaels, my friend. Thank you. Joey Song Podcast. Remember to follow us on all the socials. And if you can, please like and follow. And I can't keep up with the ways that you're supposed to let people know you like the podcast, but apparently it feeds the big algorithm in the sky. So please like and follow and comment. David Michaels, we'll talk soon, my friend. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end of the podcast. A quick reminder, if you can give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast provider and write a short review, it will really help us out. If you can head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel over there, that's another big help. These simple acts make it easier for others to find us. And of course, head over to joeysong.org to join our community and stay up to date on all the news. Thanks, and we'll talk again real soon.
Learn more about Joey Song by visiting joeysong.org. The theme music was composed by Sam Gomoll, and Joey Song is a federally registered 501c3 charity. Thanks for listening.